When I was in high school, I joined the Air Force. My dad had served in the Navy, and my 4 older brothers all had gone into the military, so I decided that I would do the same. So I joined the Air Force. When I graduated from high school, I went directly to basic training in Texas.
You graduated early, did you say that part? You graduated early, did you say that part?
You want me to brag too? Our high school allowed us to graduate early if we had enough credits, which I did in January of my senior year. So, and I knew that was going to happen when I joined the Air Force. So in February of my senior year is when I actually went active duty. Went to basic training at San Antonio, Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. Was there for 6 weeks, and then went to training in Illinois to learn how to repair environmental systems on airplanes, which is heating and cooling and oxygen, pressurization, and anti-gravity suits. So when I got done with training, they sent me to Mountain Home Air Force Base near Boise. The Air Force has a program where they have someone from the base that you're going to be assigned to and someone that you're going to be working with in the same department contact you and send you literature about the base that you're going to and the area around that base. So I started getting packets of information about Mountain Home Air Force Base, and all of the pictures were of trees, which I learned later were not actually at Mountain Home, they were somewhere else. Because when I flew into Mountain Home, to Boise to go to Mountain Home, there were no trees. Anyway, so the person that sent that information to me is called my sponsor. And when I was gonna come to Boise for my tour of duty to Mountain Home, my sponsor was supposed to pick me up at the airport to take me back to the Air Force Base. When I got to the airport in Boise, somebody else said, your sponsor couldn't be here, so he asked me if I would come pick you up. His name was Tom Baxter. Tom had his wife, Jerry, with him. So if you're familiar with old cartoons, Tom and Jerry is a cartoon. That's how I remembered their names. So Tom and Jerry drove me back to, drove me to the Air Force Base. But while we were driving, Tom asked me if I was a member of any particular church. And I told him that I wasn't. And he asked me, well, what do you know about the Mormon Church? And I said, well, not really anything, because I didn't. And he started telling me some things that I thought were quite interesting. And when they dropped me off at the Air Force Base, he and Jerry invited me to come to their house for dinner that following week. So that night, we had dinner, and then Tom started telling me about the church, and he told me about the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ. He told me about living prophets and apostles. He told me about patriarchal blessings. And while he was telling me, and the restoration of the priesthood, and while he was telling me all of this stuff, there was a feeling that came over me that I'd never had in my entire life. It was something that I couldn't explain. I just knew that what he was telling me was absolutely true, and that Jesus Christ had restored his gospel on the earth. And that was 44 years ago. And I've never, ever doubted since that day it was a life-changing experience. And I'm very lucky to have the amazing eternal family that I have. Thank you for being part of my eternal family.
Yeah.
And I was in the Air Force. I only had one friend that I grew up with, and it didn't matter to him. He didn't know anything about the church, and he didn't care. Like Nana, our family was not that close, and we were all doing our own thing. So I know that there was, some of my siblings, my brothers and half sisters were, like, is that a good idea? But we didn't really communicate much, so I didn't really worry about what they thought. My parents, it didn't matter to them, and my grandparents were already passed away by then, so